Starring her, trip of a lifetime. Let's fucking go. Alright, so this episode is going to be protesting our devices. I recently finished Rogan's podcast episode with the guy who did a story on cobalt. Cobalt is apparently a mineral used specifically for batteries in smartphones and electric cars, and the mining of it is done in the Congo, and not surprisingly under inhumane conditions. It was an interesting podcast. It inspired this episode as kind of like a spin-off. I knew to check out for that episode because Rogan, I saw him post about it in my IG feed. Well, he posts about his IG feed and I see it in my IG feed. He don't be posting my shit. And his post said, "It's shocking to hear what goes on. I was clueless that any of this was happening." And I'm thinking, how did he not know there's like slave labor in Africa for minerals? I felt like it was common knowledge. They even coined the phrase conflict minerals. And then I started listening to the podcast, and the guy who he had on breaks down how this situation is different than the conflict mineral situation that we're used to hearing about. The cobalt thing, this is a new development within the past 5 to 10 years, specifically mining cobalt. The emergence of technology like smartphones and electric cars brought new demand for a mineral, and I guess they figured out cobalt specifically is what works for some reason. And if I understand properly, I think that the conflict minerals are used for processing chips in our computers. But he says the difference between cobalt and the conflict minerals is the conditions for the mining of the cobalt are much worse than the traditional conflict mineral mining. This is an even more problematic situation. I'm not going to lie, though, when he tells stories about what's happening, I kind of just assume that's what's been happening prior with the conflict minerals. It's not like I thought fair labor laws were being practiced anywhere that they're mining for minerals in the Congo. I assumed it's borderline slavery under dangerous, inhumane conditions. So I wouldn't say I was shocked like Rogan was to hear this guy talk about what he saw. But what caught my attention was how recent of a development it is. When I think of slavery and genocide, I think of it as pre-existing, something with deep roots that existed in the past but still lingers in third world countries. I never think of it as situations that have recently spawned. This is all a new occurrence, and it's happening because of a demand created by products that we're consuming. And maybe it would be happening anyway, but the scale of it is because of us. The cobalt guy said that change starts at the ground level, and he's 1,000,000,000% right. Politicians aren't going to change laws putting in supply chain regulations and restricting corporations owned by their campaign donors unless it's forced upon them by the masses. Now's the time that all these woke people could show how woke they actually are. Specifically, all those people who protested George Floyd for one day, even though they probably haven't thought about George Floyd or police brutality ever since then. I said it back then, they'll forget about George Floyd and police brutality when it's no longer a talking point, and that's exactly what happened. Nobody wants police brutality, and every time I write police brutality, I write it in quotes because, like, the phrase is a witch hunt to me. Isolated instance, yeah, but large scale, I don't know police brutality is happening. But like I said, nobody wants police brutality, and everybody genuinely feels bad when they hear about one of these incidents. But on a day-to-day basis, the majority of people in America don't think twice about police brutality, whether they did or didn't attend the George Floyd protests. People following whatever way the wind is blowing, caring about what they're told to care about. I'll actually believe people care about something when they're willing to make real sacrifices for it. And those are the 2 points that tie this back to cobalt. Caring about what you're told to care about and making real sacrifices to create change. It's not that police brutality specifically strikes a chord with people. People just genuinely want to stand for what they believe is right and take a stand against what's wrong. So if instances of police brutality make them want to protest, then slavery and genocide should at least do the same. They're monumentally worse. It's a macro-level human rights violation, whereas police brutality is a few micro-level isolated incidents. And in their defense, police brutality is an issue happening here in America, whereas the mining of minerals is happening over there in foreign countries. But even though geographically police brutality is happening closer to home, it's like it's happening over there because it's not something that people witness on a day-to-day basis or ever witnessed once for that matter. And people rarely know anybody personally who was a victim of police brutality. brutality. People who are unaffected personally by police brutality but still say they care about it should also care about the inhumane conditions created for the mining of cobalt. But because cobalt and mineral mining in the Congo has never been a major talking point, at least like in terms of important conversations, most people don't think twice about it. And even though police brutality is happening closer to home than the mining is, the inhumane mining is much more tangible than police brutality. I might not firsthand witness the mining, but I keep seeing the electronic devices magically appearing for extremely reasonable prices. And that brings up my next point, which is kind of the point of the podcast and the concept behind the title. The difference between police brutality in America and the inhumane mining in the Congo is none of us can really do anything to actually end police brutality in America. Whereas we can all band together to do something that can actually make a change in the situation in the Congo. We can't really do anything to end police brutality because the problems aren't in the laws, it's in human behavior. And some of the incidents aren't even necessarily fueled by hate and racism as much as it is just heightened senses, specifically fear, feeling a sense of threat, and losing control of the situation in the moment. And the police brutality incidents aren't organized or premeditated. On the other hand, I said we can band together to make change in the situation in the Congo. How can we do that? At minimum, stop over-consuming personal electronic devices. At maximum, protest by refusing to use them. Stop using any devices made with dirty minerals. No smartphones, no computers, and no electric cars until the mining that goes into those products is regulated under humane conditions. Does your concern for human rights violations outweigh your desire to have electronic devices? Mine doesn't. I want my devices. And I was thinking about it on my way up here. I need my devices. Like, I love my job driving an Uber and doing Uber delivery. How am I going to drop fast food off of people's porches if I don't have a phone? I need the app for my job. But so my answer is no. My concern for human rights violations does not outweigh my desire to have electronic devices or my need for it. But like the Cobalt guy said, any change is going to start at the bottom. It's against the corporation's nature to willingly do anything that negatively affects its profit. Corporations aren't going to change anything that's going to hammer their bottom line unless sales plummet and their hands are forced. And politicians are at the mercy of whatever way the wind is blowing. So if the masses made their voices heard loud and we all boycotted our electronic devices, then politicians would listen. They'd make this a high priority and create laws putting in regulations. And that's how change starts at the bottom. The individual consumer holds no power, but the mass of consumers as a whole together hold all the power. Corporations are at the mercy of us just like politicians are. They're forced to cater to us, but we gotta force them. A change of our spending habits resulting in a lack of corporate sales speaks louder to anybody than a protest rally does. And what's funny is if sales plummeted and corporations were forced to adapt, when they put out their first line of quote-unquote clean products, their advertising campaigns will revolve around how their products are all made with humane labor. But in the modern day, this is what a real protest is. Sacrificing something essential to your way of life that's going to directly impact what you're trying to change. But this isn't going to happen because nobody's protesting their electronic devices. They're luxuries that have become necessities to our way of life. Nobody's living without the devices no matter what the cause is. If putting down our devices would somehow end police brutality overnight, only a small fraction of the people who attended the George Floyd protests would initially do it. People would follow the herd once everyone else did, but they would only do it once they saw everyone else doing it. That's a made-up scenario if protesting our devices could somehow relate to police brutality. But it does relate to the mining situation in the Congo in real life. How woke are you? How willing are you to put down your devices in the name of human rights? I don't think people want to do it. And that's what being woke is, and why people really do prove that they're woke as fuck. Being woke is caring enough to post on social media and attend a protest event for a day, but not caring enough to make sacrifices that affect your daily lifestyle. Nobody's about to sacrifice their devices in the name of human rights. Like I said, I don't want to do it. I'd follow the herd, but I wouldn't step up and be part of the first wave. But I'm extremely willing to comply. And I think it's undoubtedly something we should be doing. And going forward, I would have absolutely no problem paying much more money for devices if it meant all the mining for minerals for devices we use was done under humane work conditions and fair labor practices. But the problem is the shift wouldn't magically happen overnight. If we did this, we would have to protest purchasing devices and maybe go an extended period, multiple years without devices altogether before we saw any type of change. But like I said, when the Cobalt guy says change comes from the bottom level, this is basically what he's referring to. I could guarantee you any type of mining regulations in third world countries has to be forced upon them, most likely by the consumer. Corporations aren't just changing on their own, and I don't see politicians taking a moral stand over this anytime soon. And I don't know how much we could control what happens over there in the Congo, but if we weren't purchasing the cobalt that was mined under inhumane conditions, then I'd assume whoever is controlling it out there would have to cater, because everybody has to cater to whoever is purchasing, whoever has the purchasing power. But I looked it up and I read that cobalt is recyclable. If we keep using our current devices and just recycle all the cobalt that we already have in our smartphones and other minerals in our computers, then we could boycott and still have devices at the same time. What you already have is yours. Just don't buy anything from this point going forward until the situation is cleaned up. If you want a new smartphone, now you would have to bring your old one in to reuse that cobalt if it works like that. If they could just go into your phone, get that cobalt out, and then use that to manufacture a new phone. But if it does work like that, that recycling process might be extremely expensive. And if companies did eventually put out clean products, that would obviously be even way more expensive. Instead of $500, the average smartphone might cost $2,500 to $5,000. But I think that's the way it should be. Electronics should be much more expensive than they currently are. They should be seen as a luxury, a major purchase expected to last for a very long time. And I only say that because of the truth of what's going on with the mining in the Congo. If we could get great technological devices at a cheap price with no human rights violations, then I'd say that's amazing. That's what utopia looks like. But apparently that's not what's going on. And unless I'm wrong, the way to change what is happening is by regulating labor at the ground level of these major corporations. But that would greatly inflate the price of these devices. That's why everything is so cheap. These corporations basically rely on borderline slave labor. It's just not happening on American soil, and that's how they get away with it. I think this is what I hear. I wake up, I drive Uber, I smoke trees, and I record a podcast. I really don't know what's happening in places that I don't see. And I eat banging food. But I feel like as consumers, we take for granted how cheap electronics are right now, yo. It's crazy. Everything is so fucking ridiculously cheap. Let's exclude video game consoles from this conversation because it's not a necessity, even though it really is a necessity if you're a gamer. Like if you play games, even if you just play Madden, whatever the new console is, you have to have it. But there's three main electronics that I consider necessities to our way of life in terms of personal devices. Like you think we have like manship. We do kind of have manship, but when you think about it, we only have a few that actually matter. And the three of them are your smartphone, your computer, and your TV. You could throw tablet in there, but to me, it's not a necessity. I don't really have a tablet. I don't know whether there is or isn't minerals in TVs. I don't know what goes into a TV. But even if they don't require minerals, they're still predominantly manufactured in China, which brings up the question of the manufacturing process of everything that we have, opening up another rabbit hole, which shows like, I mean, even if we protest cobalt and minerals, the fuck is it even doing? But excluding video game consoles, other than TVs, smartphones, and computers, like I just said, the only other relevant electronic personal technology is tablets. But I don't see tablets as a necessity. I don't really have a tablet. I have a first generation iPad that I've never really used. Tablets were innovative in terms of design. It was like a new way to feed us the screen, but it wasn't innovative in terms of technology. It's kind of like a hybrid between a smartphone and a computer, but you can't do anything on a tablet that you couldn't already do on your smartphone or your computer. Tablets are good for people with desktops, but I always had a laptop, so I just used that instead of the tablet that I bought. But then after the ones that I've mentioned, the three main ones that everyone has that matter, the TV, computer, smartphone, video game consoles that some people have, and tablets, which are more of a luxury than a necessity. After those things, the next piece of relevant personal electronic technology that we purchase is basically our speakers. And that's like nothing. A lot of people don't even have speakers that they care about. So in terms of personal devices that are a necessity for consumers to purchase, I see it just as three things: smartphone, computer, and TV. If you're committed to buying Apple products, then everything is fairly expensive. But if you go like the Android PC route, options are dirt cheap. And even though Apple products are fairly expensive, like I just said, devices have the capabilities to last an extremely long time, making the price point seem very reasonable in the long run. Whatever you purchase is capable of lasting for the foreseeable future until there's new innovative technology forcing you to upgrade. But that's the thing. It's been a while since there's been any innovative technology forcing us to upgrade our electronic devices. And that's a major point that I'm going to make on this podcast. We upgrade our devices way too frequently at a time when there's no innovation happening forcing us to upgrade. And it's so ironic because I started working on this podcast trying to make the point of how we upgrade too frequently, and I haven't upgraded devices in years. It's been 10 years since I've upgraded TV or computer, and at least 5 years since I upgraded my phone. But since I started working on creating this podcast into this moment that I'm recording it, I've upgraded everything. I've upgraded my TV, my phone, and my computer, all for various reasons, which I'll get to. But in the past decade, we've seen virtually no computer advancements for the basic consumer. The last time you had to buy a new computer was probably when apps became a thing and phones started syncing up with computers. TVs have gotten sharper and more advanced, but as long as you have a 1080p LCD TV, then you're good. Flat screens started emerging about 15 to 20 years ago, and that pushed you to get a new TV, but there hasn't been anything major since then. Maybe you felt like you had to upgrade to a smart TV, but they've been around for over a decade. And it's not like now you have to have a 4K resolution TV. And smartphones have kind of rounded into form over the past decade, but there hasn't been any innovative technological advancements within smartphones within the past decade. They just switched the design of it. And if you want to even throw tablets into this, they emerged like 15 years ago, and they've obviously improved the design also and the hardware and software, but they're still what they were. But so the point is, innovation seems static in terms of personal electronic devices. And it's because all these devices are already so advanced. I consider myself materialistic, but there hasn't been anything in a while to get me excited to go out and buy. And because of that, I rarely upgrade my electronic devices. I keep them until they've reached their lifespan. Whereas when there's innovative advancements happening, I upgrade prematurely because I want the new one. But generally speaking, electronic devices seem like they could technically last an extremely long time. I'd say you can expect 5 good years out of any electronic device you purchase. But you could get at least 10 years out of it if you don't mind having a quote-unquote obsolete device. It still functions. It'll just be behind on technology. But it's probably mostly technology that you don't even use in the first place. But what happens, and this is what bothers me, and this is the problem. Eventually, it gets to a point where you can't even update the software on the device anymore. And then in due time, the device becomes borderline inoperable because of its glitchiness. But technically, there's nothing wrong with the hardware. The problem is the software. But glitchy software is what ultimately forced me to upgrade my computer recently. My computer I just had was a laptop, a MacBook that I bought in early 2011. And it would have been fully capable of doing everything I needed it for. Even though I had that computer for 12 years, it was still totally fine with me. The problem was it had a bunch of operating issues and was becoming non-functional. But it hit me instantly. It's not worth it trying to figure out a solution to. Like, fuck that computer. It's time to move on. I got 12 years out of that computer. It served its purpose, ran its course, and then some. I don't know whether there is or isn't a place where I could bring a 2011 MacBook to be quote-unquote refurbished. But if there is, I'd imagine it would cost me a few $100s, which ties back to what I was saying before. Electronic devices are so fucking cheap these days. I'm better off just purchasing a new one opposed to spending a few $100s and going through the hassle of trying to get my last laptop fixed or refurbished. So after I started drawing up this episode saying how disproportionately cheap electronic devices have become, my money was basically put where my mouth is because I had to shop for a computer, and it's exactly what I thought it was. I haven't bought anything in a while, but I have been noticed a few years ago, like, damn, you could get shit cheap as fuck these days. But so when I started shopping now, I saw options to purchase computers at the price point I'd basically be willing to spend to salvage my old computer if restoring it to factory settings and installing a new operating system was even possible. And usually I'm committed to buying a laptop for travel purposes, but my old laptop is still semi-usable. So I figure I could just use that shit when I travel still. I've been working with laptops for the past 20 years now. I'm about to turn 38. Yeah, about 18 years old is probably when I got my first laptop. But like desktops have evolved a lot since then. That was like early 2000s. That was like almost 1999. I basically haven't owned a desktop since the 90s. I moved away from desktops when they were still bulky monitors with those big ass towers. I haven't been syncing up my phone with my computer. I'm not committed to Apple products. So for like $350, I saw I could get a new all-in-one PC, or I could do Apple and I could get for that price a 2015 refurbished iMac. I figure since I have an iPhone, I might as well just get the refurbished iMac. It's still 4 years newer than my laptop. So it's still an upgrade, even though it's 8 years old. And this just validates the lack of innovation within computers. There's no new features in a 2023 computer pushing me to get that opposed to a 2015 computer. And there's no new features that I cared about in that 2015 computer that would make me excited that my 2011 laptop didn't already have. I just need a non-glitchy interface that operates properly. Basically, I just need a screen with apps available. So for $350, I bought a 2015 refurbished iMac off of Amazon. It arrived and it looked brand new. It was nice as fuck. And what's ironic is how I keep saying there hasn't been any innovative technology in our electronics over the past decade to get excited about upgrading. But when the iMac arrived, I was so fucking excited. But my excitement with the arrival of the 2015 computer validating lack of recent innovation. I was as equally as excited for that computer as I would have been if it was a 2023. I was just excited to have my first iMac. I really like the design. iMacs just look nice as fuck. And I like the concept of the all-in-one computer. And that's a 2015 iMac. Now it's 8 years later and the monitor still looks the same. Maybe slight alterations to modernize the design. And now they actually offer colors. That's brand new though, but I'll get to that. But in terms of how it looks, it's just as exciting to get a 2015 iMac as it is a 2023. If you just use your computer for the internet, it shouldn't make you the slightest bit more excited to have a 2023 if you already have a 2015. I didn't already have an iMac though. I had a laptop, and that's what was most exciting about getting an iMac for me. It was the transition back to desktops and to have a much bigger screen with a real keyboard and a real mouse again. I had been so used to using a laptop for so long, it was all I knew at that point. But it's just way better to have a mouse opposed to using that trackpad and a real keyboard with like an actual monitor. But like I alluded to, it was because I need a computer when I traveled. The previous times I upgraded computers, buying a desktop was not even a thought. But now since I got my laptop as a backup, it freed up my options, and the desktop was a great decision. And then the following reason I was excited to upgrade to the iMac was because it functions properly. It doesn't have nonstop pop-ups, and I was finally able to sync up my iPhone, my computer. But the overall point is I haven't bought a computer in so long because there hasn't been any exciting, innovative technological advancements in over a decade forcing me to upgrade. But it's been so long since I bought a computer, and my last one was functioning so poorly that the process of buying a new computer ended up being exciting anyway. But as I said, I don't think it's necessarily more exciting to get a 2015 iMac if you already have a 2011 iMac. Just as it's not exciting to get a 2023 iMac if you already have a 2015 one. And the point I keep making, which is there's no innovative advancements in these devices over the past decade. And I'm using Macs as an example because I own Apple products. But PCs are obviously the same boat with stale innovation. And in terms of what the interface looks like, ultimately the screen is the screen. You either have a Mac screen or you have a Droid or PC screen. Ever since the emergence of apps, the desktop setup is pretty much perfect. So not only has there not been any innovative technological advancements in computers, but what you're looking at is borderline identical and hasn't changed in over a decade. The operating system on newer computers is always improving, but it's always just a better version of the same shit. The exterior design is basically the one thing these companies have control over to modernize newer models without having technological innovation to feed off of, because that's what they need, these companies. They need technological innovation, otherwise they're useless. When there's technological innovation, that's when they're on our side because they're working to get us the products for the cheapest price possible. But when there's no technological innovation, they're trying to sell us devices that we don't need. So they look for points to sell you on. And the exterior design is basically what they have control over. And like I said, the all-in-one desktop was innovative. That's the cool thing. And the companies make the monitor sleeker. But Apple can alter the iMac's look slightly, but it gets to a point where there's only so much they can do. And like I said before, tablets are also extremely innovative in terms of the design. It's kind of like a hybrid device, but it doesn't replace our need for a computer. And the companies want to sell you on both anyway. But due to the lack of technological innovation within the devices over the past decade and their ability to alter the design of the products, the design has really been what the companies try to market you on when advertising the latest models. More so with smartphones, which I'll get to. But Apple dropped an ultra-thin laptop, the Mac Air, a bunch of years back, and they acted like they reinvented the wheel. I see absolutely no benefits of an ultra-thin laptop. And they recently enlarged the size of the screen for the iMac. It went from a 21-inch screen to 24 inches. The bigger screen is definitely better, but a bigger screen isn't going to actually motivate most people to go out and upgrade. And now you can accessorize. I think that's what it's called when you get something in one of every color. But iMacs come in different colors now. They look cool. I bet this basic-ass 12-year-old white girl's all across America obsessed with getting the new pink iMac for Christmas and will never forgive their parents if they don't get it for them. But I'm just as basic as those 12-year-old chicks. I think the blue iMac is cool as fuck, but I don't even want to get it because I'm 38 years old and it's cheesy as fuck to have a blue iMac. And even though I should do what I like in life, if I like the blue iMac, then I should get it. I'll still feel mad corny every time I look at it. And it's just not worth getting it because I already know I'll fucking hate that computer if I buy it. So it's like not even an option. If I look at a blue iMac every day, I'll be like, that shit's corny. And for some reason, Apple has a bunch of different colors, but they don't offer it in black. I don't understand why they don't have a black iMac. I'm so fucking gay that if they had a black 2023 iMac, I would have 100% spent that extra G on that, opposed to just getting the refurbished 2015, even though to me they're identical other than the color. I've seen a picture of a black refurbished iMac on Amazon that looked so fucking ill, but it says in the description that's actually silver, so it's not like it actually was a black one. I don't know whether Apple has or hasn't actually ever made black iMacs in the past, but now that they have a line of iMacs in different colors, I don't understand why black's not an option. But the fact that black isn't an option is the only reason they didn't hook me on a 2023 iMac. And then finally, the last thing that Apple uses as an advertising point these days is the M1 chip. It's the 24-inch screen, the different color options, and then the M1 chip. I know all their advertising points right now because I was just in the market for a new computer while simultaneously creating this episode. And there's nothing I want to do more than buy a brand new 2023 iMac because consumerism is real. And I was looking for any reason to buy it, but I just couldn't find anything to justify getting it when a 2015 iMac can serve the same exact purposes for me for $1,000 cheaper. But Apple advertising the M1 chip makes me laugh. It just sounds cool, the M1 chip. If I understand it correctly, the M1 chip allows all your apps to simultaneously properly work together or some shit, so that it speeds up everything if you're using a bunch of different programs at once. Sounds like a good feature, but my response to that would be, how come it took so long to create hardware that does that in the first place? The apps weren't designed to work together in past iMacs. I just don't think it's normal for some sort of processing chip to be their selling point. I think it's a sign that there's no exciting innovative technology and there's no reason to get a new iMac unless you actually need a new computer for some reason like I did. And then I don't even need a new one. I could still get a used one. So between the 24-inch screen, the blue monitor, and the M1 chip, the only one of those features that makes me want to splurge for the 2023 iMac opposed to refurbished one is the blue monitor. And if I was still 12 years old, I would have been fixated on getting the blue iMac. But now I've been around the block a few times and I literally don't even want it. So like I said, the route that I went was simply spending $350 on Amazon on a refurbished 2015 iMac. and it proved everything I wanted to say about the lack of technological advancements in devices to be true. I was as excited with that computer as I would have been with the brand new one. But then something weird happened, and I'm blessed I do this podcast to catch the problem before it was too late. I downloaded a podcast episode, and then when I played it back, the audio was good for like the first minute or so. But then when I skipped anywhere past that point, there was no audio. I downloaded a few different podcast episodes that I previously downloaded without problems, and the same problem would happen to me. It was so weird, but it wasn't my headache because I wasn't committed to the computer. Something I'm going to get to is how privileged our way of life is, but it's definitely a privilege to be able to try to buy a used computer at no risk whatsoever. Full refund with no question asked on almost anything we purchase. So I started the return and I ordered a different one from Amazon, from another Amazon vendor that sells refurbished electronics. Figured I didn't trust that last place anymore. The last iMac was $350. This one was like $420 in terms of price. Figured I'd splurge and hope it meant I got a computer that actually worked. It's still a bargain if the computer actually functions properly. So this one arrives, and again, it's 2015 iMac refurbished. I couldn't believe it. I pulled it out of the box and it had 2 noticeable scratches on the screen. And the plastic on the monitor was all chipped up. Like I said, we live such a privileged way of life right now. 25 years ago, someone told me they were buying a used computer. This is exactly what I would have expected it to look like. But just knowing how you could get anything used that seems basically as good as new these days on the secondary market. Plus, it has like official refurbished label next to it. Plus, it's sold on a reputable retailer like Amazon. I was shocked that the computer came to me in the condition it did. But like I said, it doesn't matter because I wasn't committed to it. I didn't get ripped off. I knew I was sending it back as soon as I opened up the box. If I was a terrible person, I'd go on Amazon and leave a 1-star review and comment like, if I could rate this 0 stars, I would, blah, blah, blah. So they do. It was a disappointment, but I was just thankful I could get my money back. I still booted it up though because I want to see if it downloads files properly, just to see if it had that same error that the last computer had. But I couldn't even get past one of the startup screens. You had to accept the terms and conditions, but there's no box to check, and you can't advance to the next screen until you agree to the terms. And I couldn't figure out what to do. I want to break the fucking computer in half, but I couldn't do that because I was still returning it. So then I ordered a third iMac for like $380, again refurbished 2015 from a vendor on Amazon. I pulled out of the box and it was presentable, but there was like a permanent sticker mark on the screen. So instantly I knew I wasn't keeping it. But I started up anyway to download a podcast episode to see what happens. And sure enough, the same fucking problem with the sound. It plays fine for the beginning, and then if I scroll to any middle part of the podcast, there's no fucking sound. It's such a strange problem, but there's something to it. This computer has the same problem that the other one had. So I wasn't sure what to do. And I went on BestBuy.com looking up computers of all kinds. And again, I saw they sell 2015 refurbished iMacs for that same $400 price range. I figured why not give it a try? Worst comes to worst, I could just return it. But I figured maybe I could trust a real store like Best Buy more than the online vendors, and they're like an electronics store. It's not like the Amazon vendors were untrustworthy. It was just strange issues I was having with the computers. And I got a couple lemons in terms of physical damage. But the other thing is Best Buy has Geek Squad. So if the computer somehow came to me with the same issue, I figured I could just bring it to Geek Squad. And I can't stress enough that this is all re-emphasizing how not exciting personal computer advancements in the past decade have been. I'm trying my hardest to save $1,000 on this computer, when in actuality, I'm really just looking for any reason to spend an extra $1,000 on a 2023. But I just can't rationalize doing it because it's going to do the same exact things for me as a 2015 would. So why not just get the 2015? So the refurbished iMac from Best Buy arrived. I ordered it offline. And the same issue with the fucking podcast sound. It was so fucking weird. The sound on the computer worked fine. I downloaded a podcast episode, plays normal for the first 30 seconds, and then the sound cuts off. So when I returned the one in Best Buy, I actually went to the store because I want to talk to Geek Squad. And if it did work out, I knew I could just return it there. I want to check out computers. But so I go to Best Buy, I tell the Geek Squad representative what was going on, and it's so stupid. They couldn't even look at it because I don't have a Geek Squad membership. I could have sworn back in the day Geek Squad would look at any computer I brought in, and I thought that was crazy. But it's the most ridiculous shit in the history of the universe that they'll sell you a computer that has issues. They have on-site technicians, but they can't try to resolve the problem. What type of shit is that? I wasn't mad because it's not like it's their decision and the computers are returnable. So it's none of our headaches. And I just returned it. But I would think Geek Squad is there for people with memberships and people who have issues with purchases that are still in the return window. And then that brings up the next thing that happened. I didn't complain about it, but I was thinking, what type of fucking operation are they running here? One thing I previously thought to myself is every time I send back one of these computers, these companies must have to somehow individually restore each one back to factory settings because it makes me set it up with my name, my information every time I boot up the iMacs. The return area was different than the Geek Squad area. It was like a separate, disconnected customer service area. And when the kid took the return, he started booting up the iMac. And I was thinking, oh, is he about to do that shit right now? I didn't know it was that easy. And then after he's on there for a few minutes, it looked like he was like having mad trouble and he was struggling. He looked up to me and says, you don't know how to like reboot this, do you? I started laughing like, nah, I don't know how to do it. I don't think I've ever been so shocked in my life. First off, I was shocked that Best Buy asked him to restore it in the first place right then and there every time someone returns a fucking computer. I was also shocked that they have him restore it and they don't properly train him how to do it. But then I was blown the fuck away that after interacting with me, he thought I might somehow know how to do it. I'm thinking, dude, I don't even know where the fuck I am right now. You think I know how to do that shit? Plus, looking back on the situation now, I'm surprised he's not supposed to just bring that shit to Geek Squad to reboot it. Or why he didn't at least just go ask them for help on how to do it. But he literally started Googling how to do that shit. I'm thinking, I'm never going to get out of this fucking Best Buy. I'm going to die in this place. But I was just so happy it's so easy to return shit. It's not like anything he's specifically doing is wrong. So I wasn't like the slightest bit mad. I just couldn't believe the process. But I had wanted to look at computers anyway, so I asked him if I could do that while he did this. And he said, yeah, he had finished the actual return anyway. That shit was like already processed. He barely even needed me there for what he was doing. So I started looking at computers and I see the one I had saw online, which I had figured I'd probably buy if the refurbished iMac didn't work out. It's a $350 all-in-one HP desktop. It looks nice and it's perfect for my needs. I was going to do the unthinkable though. Purchase a PC when I own an iPhone. I don't know because I've never asked anybody, but I'd imagine nobody mixes. What percentage of people have an iPhone and a PC or an Android and a Mac? It's got to be like less than 1% of 1% of people. I haven't been able to sync up my phone and my computer to 5 years anyway, so why can't I get a PC? And it's really not a major issue for me to not be able to sync up my phone, my computer. I was inches away from buying the HP. And then I saw something else that I'd seen online, but I didn't understand exactly what it is. I asked the Best Buy employee, like, I don't understand this. Do I just hook it up to a monitor? And he was like, yeah. So I was like, how does it hook up? He said HDMI cable. So I asked if it comes with one. And he said, no, but if I buy a monitor, those come with HDMI cables. And then I thought about like, yo, I have a fucking million HDMI cables in a bag of wire somewhere in my apartment. Mac motherfucking Mini. That's what I'm talking about right now. Mac Mini is like the illest shit ever. This has me beyond excited. If you don't know what it is, the concept is the best kept secret in terms of personal computers. It's essentially a portable computer. Instead of a tower, the hard drive is like a sleek, lightweight square. It looks cool as fuck. It's extremely easy to travel with. You just hook it up to a wireless keyboard and a mouse combo and plug it into any monitor, and you have your computer anywhere you go, just with a different monitor. It's only $600 for the hard drive, and I bought a nice-ass curved 27-inch monitor, Samsung, for $180. So I have a Mac interface, but it's projected on a Samsung monitor. And what's amazing is I bought this dope-ass portable 16-inch screen for like not even $100. So now I don't even need my old laptop because I could just use this computer anywhere. It's really just as easy to travel with as a laptop. A point I had just made was how these companies are desperate for anything to sell you on to try to get you to buy their newest model products. I don't understand how Apple didn't try to advertise the fuck out of Mac Mini. Instead, they're trying to sell you on a fucking M1 chip. I'd imagine a large fraction of people don't even know that this option is available for $600. If I knew this option was available for $600 the whole time, I wouldn't have had to go through 4 refurbished iMacs. It's unbelievable that these companies don't market this concept to push it harder. And I'm referring to a Mac Mini, but I looked it up and you could get PCs like this too. I'm not sure which brands make them, but they probably all do. But like I said before, it's not innovative technology, but in my opinion, that is an extremely innovative concept on the design that could motivate people enough to upgrade computers when they don't necessarily need to. Hence what these companies are trying to do. and it's at an extremely affordable price point. I don't understand why there hasn't been like dramatic Super Bowl ads marketing it as a groundbreaking revelation. And I'm guessing Apple did it before PC, but I don't know. But whichever company introduced it first missed the boat on advertising it relentlessly. And throughout the past 5 years, I've kind of been wanting a new computer, but I just thought then what I've been saying now, it's just like buying the same shit that I already have. So I just couldn't rationalize wasting any money on it because there's nothing wrong with the one I had. Other than, like I said, it was glitchy, but that was second nature to me, so it didn't bother me. I was just trapped in the pattern of it. Sometimes you don't even realize the pattern you're trapped in until you step out of it. I was so used to operating a glitchy computer, I forgot a better way is possible where websites don't block your computer and you don't gotta sit there clicking out pop-ups for 2 minutes straight to access iTunes. And you can actually sync your Mac up with your phone. It's like the web is no longer tangled. I'm so happy with how this whole journey to buy a computer turned out. And it's ironic because the point I want to make on this podcast is that there's nothing exciting enough to drive us to want to purchase a new computer. And then I got forced into the process and I found something super exciting. Again, though, this is an advancement in the design of the hard drive, not an innovation in the actual technology itself. If I blindly accessed the screen on my last laptop and my new 2023 Mac Mini, I couldn't distinguish the difference. Both of them are just an interface with my Apple apps. But so with that said, if you don't technically need a new computer and money is kind of an issue to you, it's not worth it to just go out and buy this just for the concept of what it is. And that's where we straddle the line of over-consuming devices. When you have one that's perfectly fine and efficient for your needs, but you like this other one, the concept of what it is cool, so you want that. And that's where I personally sit as a consumer. I'll make purchases I really shouldn't make out of want opposed to need. That's in the middle of the spectrum. Then on one side of the spectrum, you have people who camp out in tents for the new iPhone every year. And then the other side of the spectrum, you have people who still have flip phones and a computer they used to play solitaire on. But I think it's natural if someone has a serviceable device, but they see a Mac Mini or an iMac in the color that they want, and they get it even though they don't technically need a new computer. But when you always need the latest model, that's when it's a disease. And that's who needs to wake up to what's going on in third world countries. And I say it's disease, it's just a side effect of a sick society. And that's a cap on computers. And now I move to smartphones, but this is quick. Smartphones are in the same boat as computers in terms of being reasonably priced, and the software will fail on you before the hardware does. And the innovation has leveled out for basically the past decade also. But smartphones really are by far the most exciting technological advancement for consumers within the past 15 years. Within the past 5 to 10 years, though, there hasn't been much innovation within smartphones. Nothing exciting driving you to upgrade to the newest model. The interface is the interface. It hasn't changed recently, and it isn't going to change in the foreseeable future. It looks like a condensed version of what we see on our computer screens, a bunch of links to our apps. It's the perfect setup until someone somehow creates something better. Yet, even though there's nothing driving us to upgrade smartphones, we all know one smartphone specifically makes people fucking crazy. Certain people have to have the newest iPhone the day it drops, or else their world is over. That's a side effect of a sick society, and the people who camp out in tents are a reflection of it. And I'm not against the idea of camping out for a revolutionary product that you want that badly, even though I personally would never do it. I personally would rather just wait until the product was available at a mass scale. But I wouldn't criticize someone for camping out specifically for the first iPhone. If someone somehow understood the magnitude of it and the impact of smartphones on our lives before the launch of the first iPhone, and they were just that excited that they were willing to camp out as long as necessary, even that, if you're talking days, I don't think it's worth it. But at least I could make sense of that. What I can't make sense of, though, is how someone who already has the iPhone 13 can camp out in a tent for an extended period of time for the iPhone 14. It's so ridiculous. I alluded to before that those are the people who need to see the scope of the cobalt situation and understand the consequences of their actions. While they're camping out overnight, other people are working overnight mining the raw materials just because that person has to have the new iPhone the day it drops. And it's a trend thing where they're fixated on having the new whatever the day it drops. It's not like there's any specific features on the latest model of the iPhone that has these people so excited that they're camping down tents. It's strictly driven by doing that thing that certain people do where they take consumerism to the next level and go overboard with it. But like I said, innovation has been stagnant, and every new model they're marketing on is always like a bigger screen and a better camera. But the screen size really is the selling point on how they try to market the new iPhone model every cycle lately. Like, look how big the screen is. If anyone's actually watching this, they remember the joke in Zoolander of how small the phone was, because that was the trend at that moment, having the smallest phone. If someone showed you how small their phone was, you want to put one out even smaller. But if Zoolander was filmed today, his phone would be like the size of a person, because now it's all about having the biggest phone. It's totally reversed. And I get that Zoolander was before smartphones, so the screen is more necessary now. But I just think it's become out of control and screens are way too big. I think there's a sweet spot of the perfect screen size. And I think the iPhone 7, the phone I just had, was the perfect size. The screen's big enough, but not ridiculously big to the point where you don't want to always have it in your pocket. And I only upgraded my iPhone because my pops got a new one and he gave me his old one. Every time my pops upgrades, he gives me his old one. So I'm always one phone behind my pops. We've done that for the past 2, maybe 3 iPhones. I don't know when the last time I bought an iPhone was, but it's been about 10 years. But the last time my pops upgraded was during COVID. I'm not sure what model I had at that time, but I think it was like the iPhone 4. But it was perfect timing because that phone was beyond glitchy. It was becoming borderline inoperable. But so back then, he hit me with the iPhone 7, which is what I was just working with. And I really liked that phone. There's nothing wrong with it other than the obvious. It was becoming glitchy. But now I had the iPhone 12 because my pops just got the 14. He's not ridiculous with it, but he upgrades a little too frequently, in my opinion. In his defense, he's not out there camping intense for the latest model, but he upgrades enough that I think it's a waste of money, but more importantly, part of the problem. It works out good for me, though, because I get to upgrade every time he does. But honestly, I like the size of the iPhone 7 more than the iPhone 12. I think it's all about the perfect balance with screen size, and I think they had it, and now the iPhone 12 is just too big. And my pops wanted that 14 because it has an even bigger screen. I can only imagine how ridiculous the iPhone 14 is. It must be like carrying a tablet in your pocket. But even though I like the iPhone 7, it was nice to upgrade phones because that one was on its last breath. It was glitchy as fuck and the battery wouldn't keep its charge at all. Both issues were causing aggravation when I was driving and were a liability. Always having to deal with my phone just added another variable into the equation of the dangers of the road. So it was refreshing to not have to deal with that bullshit anymore. So even though I wasn't driven to make the upgrade, now that the upgrade was forced on me, I was happy that I did upgrade phones. Even though there hasn't been any innovation within smartphones to get excited about, it's always excited to move from a glitchy device to a fully functional one. So I've gotten to upgrade my iPhones for free, but iPhones are relatively expensive. But even as someone with an Apple computer, iPhones aren't like a necessity to me. I could still switch to an Android if I needed to get something like quickly at an affordable price. And Apple makes a generic iPhone available for $500, which isn't too bad. You can find options in Android, though, for like a fraction of that price. And like I said, there's 3 major electronic devices that are necessities to us, and you can get them all extremely reasonable prices. I've gone through 2 of them, and then the final one's the TV. The difference between TVs and smartphones and computers, though, is the TVs might not require minerals. I don't know if they do or don't. But if that's the case, then it's unrelated to the mining in the Congo. But like I mentioned earlier, even if it's unrelated to those minerals, at minimum, there's still a shady manufacturing process going on. But in terms of innovation, I feel like flat screens TVs were the last thing that really forced people to upgrade. And I feel like you got stereotyped if you wanted a flat screen TV. You were seen as like materialistic. But now all TVs are basically flat screen TVs. And in the past decade, TVs have made advancements, but I'd say nothing to the point that it makes you want to get up and buy one. Flat screens made me want to buy a TV, but a smart TV in 4K resolution didn't. But so I'm in the market for a new one because I was watching a game the other day and the picture got all fucked up out of nowhere and I thought it was a broadcast, and then I turned the channel and I saw another channel had the same issue, and then I turned up the cable box just to check and I was like, oh shit, it wasn't a cable problem. Something must have blown out on the TV. I haven't bought a TV in over 15 years. But just like computers, TVs are so affordable right now, it's cheaper just to buy a new one opposed to trying to fix that one. It's something I had been noticed a few years ago, like, yo, TVs are cheap as fuck these days. So I checked out and it's as ridiculous as I thought it'd be. You could get a 50-inch Amazon Fire 4K resolution ultra smart TV for $279. But so I ended up getting a Fire TV also, but the one I got was 55 inches. I spent $330 on it. It's the most ridiculous price ever. The 2021 models, but they're brand new TVs. Who needs a 2023 model? There's no innovation within the last 2 years in TVs that made you need a new model. And unless I have an issue with that screen, like my last one had, that $330 TV can theoretically last me the rest of my life. I thought TVs last a while, and it was validated because these Amazon TVs are LED TVs. So I Googled the difference between LCD and LED, and it said LEDs last twice as long as LCDs do. So when I checked to see how long they last, it said 50,000 hours for LCDs and 100,000 for LEDs. I was like, damn, that sounds like a while. And I did the math on it, and that's more TV than I'll ever be watching in my lifetime. So they basically last you as long as they don't have screen issues or until innovative technology makes you want to get something newer. And then you just toss that one and buy a new one because they're so cheap. So like I said, it's ironic that I started working on this episode talking about how cheap electronic devices are. And it's been years since I've upgraded mine. And then between then and now, I've upgraded all my devices and the prices superseded my expectations. And we can't go off of what I spent because my pops gave me the iPhone for free. But let's say I got Apple's generic iPhone they sell for $500. If I got that, a Mac Mini for $600 with a $200 monitor, and the 55-inch Fire TV for $330. That comes out to about $1,800 after taxes. And if you throw in the iPad, that's $2,400, which is exactly what I made driving Uber 2 weeks ago. And if we switch from Apple products to Android and PC, then I can almost make in one day enough money to pay for all of those devices. A day's worth of driving can afford me luxuries a king from a century ago couldn't even dream of. It's a privilege we take for granted. One day of driving Uber can get me an electronic device that lasts me for 10 years. It just highlights how fucked up everything is, but we still have things totally fair. It's the people over there who are paying the price for the people who are winning in capitalism over here. And the Cobalt guy was telling a story of what it looks like. And the Cobalt guy said that if you pull here, it creates a push over there. The more we overconsume devices, the more minerals in the Congo they have to mine under inhumane conditions. They're doing it to fill this demand that we're creating through overconsumption. The more we pointlessly upgrade devices, the more they're mining minerals in the Congo, pointlessly. If we stop the overconsumption, then they stop the unnecessary work. The Cobalt guy told the story of the people who pay the price for us to live our entitled existences. And what's extremely ironic about everything is every iPhone I've ever had has the shittiest battery life ever. If cobalt is such a great mineral for smartphone batteries, then how come they all have such shitty battery lives? But finally, my question, though, for everybody who says they care so much is how much do you really care? Do you really care enough to stop using devices until you see change? And the answer is probably no. And like I said, for me, the answer is also no. I'm not ready to do it. I'm willing to pay a lot more for devices, but I'm not willing to stop using devices until they're made with clean minerals. And that's protesting devices. Stern Worm, trip of a lifetime. Let's fucking go.